Hey, Steve Mignani here doing the junkyard crawl at Burniston Auto Wrecking in Burniston, Massachusetts. This is a 1956 Chrysler New Yorker. And if you were a hot rodder like Don Garlits back in the mid-1950s, if you saw New Yorker, you knew that that Chrysler had the biggest engine, and from 1951 onward, it was going to be a Hemi V8. Now, this basic car was also available as something called the Windsor, which in 55 and 56 had polyspherical cylinder heads. But this one here once had the mighty 354 Hemi right in this spot right here. So when people say, that thing got a Hemi in it, well, it used to. Now again, the 354 was new for 1956. This is a 56 car, and the 354 had the same 3.62-inch stroke as the 331 it replaced, but Chrysler increased the bore by 41 thousandths and almost a half an inch to go from 331 to 354 cubic inches. So every New Yorker had the 280 horsepower 354 four-barrel Hemi with the ability to go 0 to 60 in about 9.2 seconds. Now, something new for this generation, of course, was well, it's body-on-frame construction, not new, but these have coil spring front suspension. 1956, right here, the last year for that coil spring. 57, Chrysler would go to torsion bars up front. Now, the brakes are gone here. This would have had something called the center plane drum brake, which had two wheel cylinders, one on the top, one on the bottom, a 12-inch drum. Theoretically, a more even application of the shoes expanding outward against the drum for better braking, but that's long gone. They're problematic to tune on and to adjust, but center plane brakes would have been standard on this thing. Now, this is a 56, so first year for 12-volt electrical system. 55, yeah, believe it or not, they had a 6-volt system, but these cars were designed by the mighty Virgil Exner. We see him right here, and this is a book by Peter Grist called Virgil Exner, Imagineer, and in this book, it's great history of Virgil's design legacy, and here we see it right here, this tail fin that he brought out. Now, 1955 was the first year for what they called the forward look. 56, the fins arrived in this form, and 57, things really went crazy in space age. Now, Virgil Exner was also the designer of something called the Norsemen, which was a custom car. We see it right here. Here it is completed in Italy, and during assembly, the picture above it shows the wooden buck used to form the steel panels. Well, the Norseman is the show car that was lost on the Andrea Doria, which was hit by a Swedish ship, I think called the Stockholm. Andrea Doria sinks, along with it goes the Norseman, never seen in public. But here's an interesting letter right here in this book by Peter Grist. This is from Virgil Exner to a fellow named John Gunther, a Chrysler executive. And it describes here, hey, Luigi, what you got there? It's sort of fictional dialogue. And they say here, the car, she stink. No, she sink. So if you want, freeze frame this image right here and read this to yourself. It's funny. Basically, it describes with a sense of humor how the Norseman sank on the Andrea Doria on its way here. So that must have been a heartbreak for everybody involved. But again, Chrysler was having a lot of their show cars built by Ghia, the Italian coach builders. And this book really outlines some of the greatest ones. Here's the Plymouth version, the X500, and from there we move into things like the K310. And again, these were real cars that were built in Italy for Chrysler by Virgil Exner's design. And again, just beautiful stuff. A lot of these things still exist. This is the Chrysler Special. And of course, we have to think about the Ghia-built Explorer. And all these cars would be shipped here from Italy for use by Chrysler executives, and of course also to be shown on the show circuit. But the Norseman didn't quite make it. In fact, it's still at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, something like 80 miles off Cape Cod or something like that, sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Now, divers have gone to the wreck of the Andrea Doria and tried to raise various things, the vault, I think some porcelain things, whatever. The Norseman itself is buried in the hold. It's probably rotten and gone by now, but that's the story of that. Continuing back on this is a four-door sedan. Now, 56 was the first year for an available four-door hardtop in the New Yorker line, but this is the base model right here. And in total, there were 41,400 New Yorkers built, of which 24,749 were this basic four-door sedan, not the hardtop. So the workman, but every single one had the 280 horsepower, 354 four-barrel Hemi. And something also seen for the first time here in 1956 are these 8 teeth or hash marks on the tail. This is something seen on all New Yorkers through 1962. So when you saw these in the junkyard back in the day, you knew you were looking at a New Yorker, go right to it, and hopefully it still had its big engine, Hemi or 413, depending on the year. Let's go around to the back here. Here is one of the original hubcaps. And if you know your Chrysler 300, you'll recognize this. Very similar to the Chrysler 300 hubcap, just a different center. But again, this is one of the hubcaps for the 15-inch wheels. And speaking of those wheels, here's one of them here. Now, if you are familiar with your Mopar history, 1970 brought the rally wheel, which looks a lot like this. This is a 15 by 6-inch wheel, very similar. But these slots right here, well, they just happen to be used on 50s vintage Chryslers. The one thing that makes this very different from the 1970 up rally wheel is everything. But beyond that, this 5 on 5.5 inch bolt circle right here, a full inch larger than the B body type and E body type 5 on 4.5 bolt circle. But again, these holes here weren't for looks. These actually were for venting air out from the center blade brakes and also the Osco Lambert optional disc brakes seen up till 54. These holes right here were very helpful in getting brake heat out. You got to think that, you know, Chevrolet's Corvette didn't get rally wheels with slots in them until 1966. So 10 years earlier, Chrysler had vented wheels for better brake action. Who's ahead? I don't know. All right, here inside of the trunk, well, this is a body-on-frame car, and we can see that rust has pretty much decimated the trunk floor. There's the old power steering box right there that would have been attached to the bottom of the steering column. Traces of the Robin's Egg blue paint kind of still visible, but again, rust is the winner on this one. But something kind of shocking is how one of these plastic tail lamps, the wraparound exotic tail fin, is still kind of here. It's kind of sad and shocking to see that. Now this would have had an 8 3/4 style rear axle. So a year before, actually 2 years before, 1958 was the first year Sure Grip was available. In other words, Posi for you GM guys. But the rear axle is gone here. But this would have had leaf springs and again the big Hotchkiss type rear axle. Inside, let's take a peek. Oh yeah, the door hinges are a little less than happy, but you can still see the remnants of the transmission tunnel. Again, the padded dash up on top. That was a safety feature in the mid-50s. Pretty exotic stuff in the day. Aircraft inspired is what the dealer brochure says. But if we look at that brake pedal, we can see it's actually suspended. It's hanging down from under the dashboard. 1955 was the first year for that type of architecture. From 54 all the way back to the first Chrysler in 1924, pedals came up through the floor. Problem with that was that hole in the floor means a place for water and dirt to enter the cockpit, the cabin. But by going suspended pedals in 1955 and later, like we see here on this 56, well, the cabin was all the more insulated from dirt, moisture, and stuff on the outside. But there it is, man, the New Yorker. Again, Don Garlits, we all know that his first Swamp Rat was flathead powered. And he says, you know, let's take the Hemi out of my street rod, my tow car, and put it into the dragster and see what happens. The thing ran like almost twice as quick. Well, not really, but I mean, it hauled butt. But again, it's all because he found New Yorkers in Florida junkyards, put them into his Swamp Rat dragsters, and really helped to cement the Generation 1 Hemi's reputation and legacy in drag racing, usually with a blower on top. That's when they really haul butt. But this is it, man. 1956 Chrysler New Yorker. When you saw a New Yorker in a junkyard as a hot rodder, you went right to it. And yeah, somebody got this one. So no, it doesn't have a Hemi in it, at least not anymore. But that's the story of this one. If you want to learn more about any kind of car, well, definitely subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel. We've got videos on everything here at Ferguson Auto Wrecking.